Alright, let's take this one from the top. First recording in forever. My eye is very red. At my ripe old age of 19 years old, I've started to get very nostalgic for what my life was as a child, because as an adult, it's a never-ending whirlwind of garbage. And when you look back on life as a child with adult eyes, you start to realize there's some bizarre things. And that's something all of us experience. Mine probably isn't any more bizarre than yours is. Okay, it was. I was homeschooled, so it was definitely like way more bizarre than your existence was. But capital G gamers come with a lot more things in common than the average person. And even though us gamers come in a lot of shapes and sizes, even various lengths, we share a baffling amount of the same experiences. Getting gifted a game for a console you don't own, reading the manual on the way home from the store, getting a demo disc from a grocery store magazine rack. A controller stick suddenly starts getting stuck slightly forward, also known as stick drift, so that controller becomes relegated to player 2. That's just to list a few things. Of course, none of these apply to you if you were born after 2012, because the only game you've ever bought was V-Bucks. But an experience I think can be added to this list of things we've all done is the weird game that you got added to your collection and you later realized nobody had ever heard of it or talked about it. I've heard the term cousin game thrown around a lot recently. It's like that, but it's the cousin game that you owned. You were the cousin. So I peeled open the layers of my brain to try to remember the bizarre of my childhood gaming collection, to reminisce on these frankly goofy titles, which was a difficult task because my brain is like an old mattress. It was once able to adapt to new shapes and things, and now the ass groove is just set in permanently, and that's just what it knows. So anytime you lay on it, you're definitely getting back pain, even if you lay perfectly in the groove. If I had an advertisement for mattresses right now is when I'd try to sell you one, but I don't, so let's move on to games. Powerdrome. Now, I don't know how niche this one is because I see a copy of it in every single used game store that I go into, but nobody seems to know anything about it. Nobody has ever heard of Powerdrome but me. I feel very gaslit by Powerdrome, like maybe there is one copy in the entire universe and it continually teleports to the game resale store nearest to me. I'm kind of hoping this is like a It Follows type situation, like once I tell you about it, I never have to see it again, and I get to go on with my life happy and unbothered, and you get to find Powerdrome in every store you go to. I think that's how that movie worked, right? I've never seen it. I don't even know where to begin with Powerdrome because I don't even know where it came from. I woke up one day and it was just in a stack of games. It just appeared there. Further enforces my previous statements. It's certainly a game you can judge by its cover because it shows pretty much everything you need to know about it on the cover. It's kind of a mix between F-Zero and Star Wars Pod Racer, but with that difficulty just cranked all the way up to the maximum, which is why 9-year-old me was not the biggest fan of Powerdrome. This game has a pretty high skill ceiling. I have no experience with the original arcade title to know if it was the same way. PS2 Powerdrome is as hard as a block of steel. The reason I say this game is so difficult is because it is all based on boosting. There isn't much rubber banding, so boosting is the way to get ahead, but the boost meter isn't filled by collecting items to fill it. The only way to get boost is by driving well and not crashing into stuff. It charges over time as you move, but when you do hit stuff, your boost bar will just shoot right back down to the bottom. As a kid who was not very good at video games, Powerdrome didn't get a lot of playtime because of its difficulty. Coming back to it as an adult, it's a standard hover car racer, like a Wipeout, F-Zero, or Pod Racer, but less fun because not a single one of the 4 camera options is useful for seeing anything. The steering has no nuance to it. It's cranked all the way to whichever direction you push. And lastly, the tracks and racers are so unmemorable that this guy existed 3 years longer, and I still refer to him as knockoff Commander Shepard. On to the next one. C12 Final Resistance. The next game I want to talk about is a real bizarre one. I don't even see videos about it. You may not have heard of C12 Final Resistance. This game was released on the PS1 in 2001 in the EU, but not until July of 2002 here in North America, which is nearly a full year after Grand Theft Auto 3. Grand Theft Auto 3 was quite the system seller, and this game was stranded on the PS1, so that kind of makes sense why nobody has ever heard of this. But C12 was a Sony published and developed game. This was a first-party game that never gets mentioned alongside Crash and his other PS1 pals. But Sony could still drop a C12 sequel any day. As far as I know, they own all the rights to this. Now that is highly unlikely because this game is just kind of a Siphon Filter ripoff, like they just did Siphon Filter again. It's a basic PlayStation 1 third-person shooter. It is only the same to Siphon Filter in gameplay. Everything else is wildly different. You play as a guy named Riley Vaughn, and that doesn't have the same ring to it as Gabe Logan. He's a cyborg with a red glowing eye, and he fights aliens and robots. It probably would have sold better if they would have called it something like Siphon Filter 2027 or whatever generic future year they could pick. I guess this was 2002, so they would have been like 2020. It's not like anything bad happened to that year. That's a good year to base an apocalypse. My biggest memory of this game, how ridiculous Riley walked. His top half always faced forward while his legs walked 90 degrees to the side. If he's north, his legs are west. And that run cycle is embedded itself in my memory forever. Now, if I were to review this game coming back to it now, this guy is no Gabe Logan. That's my review. The gameplay is what you expect it to be from a late PS1 third-person shooter. Not very good. The story is kind of a bland 90s sci-fi romp. I can see why Sony has not revisited this title or even mentioned it and kind of buried it below everything. But now maybe is the time to bring back C12. Clearly the whole Concord Fair Games live service push is a massive success for them, so they don't need it. But if they just wanted to, try something different, maybe they could give O'Reilly Vaughn a chance. Evolution Skateboarding. I will keep this one kind of brief because I've mentioned it on the channel before. But Konami made a whack skateboarding game. Most people familiar with this probably know it from the thing I talked about, the demo that is featured in Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty that has you play as Solid Snake and Raiden ripping it up on what seems to be like an oil rig. Tony Hawk, more like Tony Snake. Get it? Because they're both animal names. Difference is that Hawk does a 900 and Snake does a 1. You get it? He's like a snake. He's a straight line. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I know that was not a good joke, but I giggled really hard when I thought of it. And sometimes I just write this stuff for me. Like I don't care that you guys think those are funny or not. Sometimes there's just one for me that I slip in here. And that's it. My sense of humor is broken. I'm sorry. On with the skateboarding stuff. Now, my Tony Hawk obsession has been going on way longer than I've had to pay bills. So my mom picked this one up for me at some point. Must have been a mid-year pickup in between Thips titles. I got those on release pretty much consistently for a while, and I remembered it being disappointing to play compared to Thips. But it was so interesting, I couldn't stop playing it, and I'm even more fascinated with it today. It's a skateboarding game. It's got the standard Tony Hawk controls with a goal list, and you can't get off your board like an early Thips title. But you also do boss fights, like grinding off the edges of a tank to defeat it. It always felt like it was like the great value Tony Hawk to me as a kid. Like when I wasn't aware of store brands, I could still see that it looked the same as something that I liked, but something was a little off about it. My review as an adult is that it doesn't feel right. It doesn't even feel as right as the Tony Hawks that feel wrong. But it's ambitious for trying something so wild as to have boss fights in a skateboarding game. It's very Konami of Konami to do something this weird. I guess it gets points for originality, but it loses every one of those with how slow it is and that stupid mechanic of having to push, which is only good in a skate game. If it isn't skate, don't make me push. That sucks. I don't want to push. Eternal Ring. Eternal Ring is one I'll probably say the least about. Less than what I was going to say about Evolution Skateboarding when I started talking about it. And that's because I don't remember if I even played this one. I remember watching my brother playing it, but I don't know if my hands personally ever touched the stick. But the cover with the man looking down and the glowing green ring, for some reason, is etched deeply into my brain, and I think about it about once a month. I am not kidding you how often the cover of Eternal Ring just passes through my mind. Now, my memory of this is very scarce, and that's another reason why I don't know if I've played it. But what I do remember is it being a first-person RPG and standing in some grass, and that's about it. For those who want to know, this is the grass. I found the grass. As an adult, I was shocked to find out that this is a From Software title. Yeah, the Dark Souls and Armor Core guys. Armor Core 2 would have made it onto this list if they wouldn't have made one of those that became like Game of the Year like a year ago, and everyone suddenly pretended like they knew about these games before then. I was not understanding that super difficult game well before it was cool. I just want that on record, and because of that, I did not play the new one. The combat to this is not great. It's mostly stabbing and magic. Everything is all in first person, which is weird for a From Software game, which is a name deeply ingrained in the third person action genre. It pretty much entirely changed that genre into what it is today. The most notable thing I found about this game is that the voice acting is absolutely abysmal.
Yeah? The king wants you to retrieve the eternal power?
But even something that made me laugh as often as this voice acting did, it was not enough to hold my attention with this game. This is just not my thing. And apparently, it wasn't my thing as a kid either, because like I said, I don't know if I even touched the sticks after seeing what it was. At this point in my life, I was still lying to myself that I was a fan of fantasy stuff, so maybe I tried it, but there's nothing up here about it other than what I just did. Jackie Chan Adventures Legend of the Dark Hand. For the Game Boy Advance, this one is right out of the licensed game boom of the mid-2000s. It plays like every licensed game out of the 80s and 90s, and if you don't know what that means, it's a beat 'em up. It's based off the Jackie Chan Adventures TV show, and it uses a strange faux 3D graphic styles with still image cutscenes. I was never good at beat 'em ups as a child or as an adult either. That doesn't mean I don't enjoy them. I have just never been good at them. But as a kid, they weren't really my favorite thing to play because I didn't quite understand how to be good at them. For some reason, Turtles in Time got past that, and I've loved that forever. Same with Ultimate Carnage. But other than that, beat 'em ups they didn't click for me. But this was one of my go-to GBA games. There's not much to it really. There's like nothing I can really say from the adult perspective. You play as Jackie Chan dressed as Scott the Woz and do some punching and kicking. I found it to be absurdly easy. Jumping being binded to a trigger is a little confusing at first, but with the 2-button layout for this game, it's the only thing that makes sense. Where else is it gonna go? I did have the issue that I have with every beat 'em up where I can't tell if I'm lined up with who I'm trying to hit, but with how simple the AI is here, it really wasn't a problem. This is the exact opposite of Power Drum, as it's not very difficult. But it did surprise me as someone who has no tie to this show anymore, or anything Jackie Chan related. I had a decently fun time with Jackie Chan Adventure. Hamtaro Ham Heartbreak. Now, you're probably very surprised to see this on the list. I know I've said a lot of things about anime over the past few years, but you're gonna be even more surprised to hear me say that this is one of the best games on this list, if not the best game on this list. This is also a game that I have returned to multiple times over the years. So much that I wouldn't need to replay this at all for this video. But you know I put Ham Heartbreak directly into my soul. I absolutely adore this little anime hamster. And once again, I know I've said a lot about anime, but I never once said anything about an anime hamster, and you'll never catch me saying anything bad about anime hamsters. Unless it's Spat. This guy sucks. Hate this guy. That's ingrained in me. This guy is like right up there with Eric Sparrow for me. And that was kind of my review as a child and as an adult. I love this hamster. You may be asking, what is this game? I'm not going to give you any guesses because you are not going to get it unless you already know what this is. This is a game where an evil hamster breaks up all the hamster couples, and you have to go around and get the hamsters to fall back in love by doing a little dance in front of them. If you guys want that, you can have that for the Wikipedia article. It's got a little world map. You go into each of these levels. There's a little house place, there's a little spooky place, there's a little carnival place, and at each place, as you talk to people and do more things, you learn all the little pieces of the hamster language, which I guess could also be considered something like a Fortnite emote. Speaking of Fortnite, that game has literally everyone in it, including Hank Hill and Bob Belcher. Where's Taro? Hey, put Hamtaro in there. I want the buff Peter Griffin version of Hamtaro in Fortnite. Do it now. Why not just do it? iNinja. This one is kind of interesting because I have searched for this game forever in my adult life, trying to remember what it was called. And boy, was I confused by Mini Ninjas that looks very similar, and I played an unreasonable amount of it before I realized that this was definitely not iNinja. iNinja was a GameCube launch title, and I remembered it being a 3D platformer where you play as this little blue ninja and you would rank up in ninja levels as you played through the game. That was all I remember. And then I jumped into it. I was baffled to find out that the main character of this game is voiced by Billy West. That guy just does everything. You play as him. It's a platformer that is a world of fun to play. It's got a lot of humor to it. It's goofy. You accidentally kill your master and he hangs out with you as a ghost, Star Wars style. It is just a fun little romp. I really adore iNinja and wish I would have had more time to play with it for this video. It's a weird one, but I think everyone should get their hands on it. Sega Superstar Tennis. Now, what a doozy of a game. My first experience with the Xbox 360 could have been Resident Evil 5, but instead, it was Sega Superstars Tennis. and what an absolute banger it was. I didn't own Superstars Tennis until I was an adult, but before I ever owned a 360, a friend left his at my house for a while with this and Resident Evil 5, and of course a guy with literally zero ties to anything Sonic related had to play this over the sequel to his favorite game of all time. Now this was my first tennis game that wasn't Wii Sports. I had not yet been graced with the greatness that is Mario Tennis on the 64. So as a kid, I liked this game a lot. As an adult, I don't think that this game quite holds up to the quality of a Mario Tennis for the tennis aspect, but I love this game. It is so weird, and I love how weird this game is. It's a tennis game, yeah, of course, but it's also full of these weird little mini games like fighting off zombies with a tennis racket and collecting spray paint cans. But all the mini games function the exact same way the main tennis game functions. You are on a tennis court, running left to right, sometimes hitting balls, sometimes picking stuff up. And they are all super fun to play. There's a roster of interesting Sega characters. It's very bizarre to fight zombies with a tennis racket as the monkey ball monkey. But I find the weakest part of this game to be the tennis section. Just because every game takes way too long, with way too many rallies. All you're really doing is rallying until someone gets a super move before the other guy gets a super move, and then whoever gets theirs activated first hits it over, and then you just cycle back and forth. But let's talk about Yu Yu Hakusho Dark Tournament. Okay, now I've been caught red-handed. There is no hamsters in this one. I will stand by my previous statement in life that Yu Yu Hakusho is the only good anime thing with humans. This is the one I've went the deepest on. I think I've seen every single episode of this show. I have read the manga cover to cover. My wife doesn't watch my videos anymore, so that's a good thing, because then she'd know that at one point I did like an anime, and that'd probably be a crushing blow to our marriage, because she would find out that at one point I was an absolute creep, as all anime fans are. It's just got a banger story. A bully kid dies and becomes a detective ghost, goes on silly adventures, and fights for his life in a tournament to the death even though he's already dead. And that's where this game takes place, because it's also part of that license boom, and actually it rips every one of its cutscenes directly from the anime. Of course, this is an anime game, so it's just a 3D fighter, but I don't really care about that part. It means nothing to me. The thing that makes this game absolutely stellar is the token fighting minigame. You would not believe the amount of hours young me put into this game, moving those little tiles around on this grid. If you don't remember the time when I got addicted to Marvel Snap or Pokemon trading card game, this was the earliest version of that in my life. This was the weird little turn-based board game, but a virtual version of it that I sank my entire life into, and it was the minigame on a Yu Yu Hakusho PS2 game. If you ever get a chance, you need to play Token Fighter. My child review of this is the exact same as my adult review. If somebody found a way to just make this a phone app, you would never see me again. If you thought Marvel Snap was bad, you've never seen someone ruin their life with a video game addiction like I would if Token Fighter was an app. We'll round this last one out with Dead Rising, Chop Till You Drop. This one is kind of a late addition, and that's only because I saw it on the shelf and I remembered that this existed. And also, I'm gearing up Dead Rising stream, and I try really hard to forget it, but Dead Rising Chop Till You Drop is an exclusive version of Dead Rising and my first experience with Dead Rising. Oh yeah, I've played the real one since, but for the uneducated, Dead Rising is a nearly 20-year-old, okay, oh dear, it is the same age as me at 19. When this game released as an Xbox 360 launch title, it really leveraged the power of that console to make its open zone world work, while having a baker's dozen of zombies in the area at once. But how did the processing power of the PlayStation 2 that fell down the stairs hold up for this? Well, it couldn't handle any of this, so they instead decided to make the Wii version of Dead Rising a weird combination of Dead Rising and Resident Evil 4. That's right, this game ran in the Resident Evil 4 engine and played exactly like it. It became a game based more on the guns that now this time around didn't break or run out. The items you pick up to hit zombies with became more of a secondary option, which is weird because that's the entire selling point of the Dead Rising franchise, using anything at all at your disposal. Is that a bad thing? You would think as a major Resident Evil 4 fan that this would be the better version for me. I do not think that. Also with that, it becomes a very linear mission based game. Instead of being this big open free world free roaming game, you are stuck going from mission to mission. This entirely changes Dead Rising. If I wanted wanted a weird version of Resident Evil 4 to play, I'd play that stupid iPhone port they did like 15 years ago. I play Dead Rising for a much different reason than I play Resident Evil. I want the goofy freedom and chaos that comes with the title. But early on as a kid who didn't know anything about the actual Dead Rising, thought it was pretty sweet. So that was it, a list of the truly bizarre things that were in my childhood gaming collection. Where did they come from? Some of them I have no idea. Some of them, I know exactly where the disappointment came from. The thing I find weirdest about these games is that I think about all of them very often, even though I clearly didn't enjoy most of them. Why is that? Why do I think about these bizarre titles on a weekly basis? Nobody seems to even know most of these existed. Why do I think about the Eternal Ring cover every time I see a green LED? The world may never know, but I know I'm not the only one who has this issue. I threw this video prompt into my Discord, as I have been recently with video ideas, to see what other people thought, and here's a list of some of the games they brought to me. Thank you guys, I really appreciate you throwing in some submissions. Some of those I have never heard of before. And for the next time I do this, you can go ahead and join the Discord in the description below and drop your submissions for whatever that next topic may be. But if you missed out and you want to drop some weird games you own, go ahead and throw them in the comments of this one. I'd love to see what weird game I've never heard of that you own, because so far it's been nothing but bizarre stuff. I would also really appreciate it if you push the like button on this video, whether you liked it or not. It's not for you, it's for me, because if someone pushes that like button, it pushes these videos further out so more people find them. And I put a lot of work into them, so I would like more people to see them. But if you don't want to, I guess don't do it. But if you did, maybe you should also subscribe, and that'd be cool. I'd appreciate it. And I'll leave you with this video here on the screen that YouTube thinks is the best one of my videos I've made for you to watch. And then there's probably another one on here somewhere that I liked that video, and I thought that if you watch this one, maybe you would enjoy that one. And if you want to, stop by the streams every Friday night at 9-ish p.m. Central Time. Okay, I'm out of here.